some PlayStation. Where's the audio? What's up everybody, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is George, and today we're revisiting a project that I had completed in the past, but it's having a couple issues. And that project is the S-Video modded CRT. Now, about a week or so after I had finished the video, I noticed that the audio had stopped working. It just would not play audio when I was using the S-Video input. So I started trying the other inputs, and I realized I had more problems. On the composite input, the image was really dim, and I was actually having a sync issue where the image would just roll down from top to bottom and would never actually lock to the screen. On the RF input, the image was basically completely scrambled and in black and white. However, both of them, the audio worked. So I decided I better go back in, troubleshoot my no audio on the S-Video input, and then maybe figure out why my other video inputs aren't working properly, probably related to the mod in some way. Maybe I can fix it, maybe I can't. Another thing I wanted to do is kind of clean up the mod, because when I did it, I was kind of troubleshooting it by the end, and I kind of just hodgepodged it, got it to work, put it together. And I want to go back in, put an inline connector so it's easier to get the back cover off, and clean up where the resistors are so it doesn't look so messy. But I think that's enough of an intro. Let's get into it. Now I can already hear some of you. George, why do you want to fix the composite input and the RF input? The whole point was you added S-Video to it and then you got to use S-Video. You don't need those. Well, that's not true. Some consoles, like the Sega Genesis for example, doesn't have a good way to get S-Video out of it natively. You would have to mod it or use a special converter, maybe convert the RGB to S-Video somehow, but it's not an easy thing. And there's also an Atari 2600 that only outputs RF unless you do an RGB mod. Or an NES that also only outputs composite or RF. So there's no way to hook one of those up to this without video issues. So that's kind of why we would need to troubleshoot those issues. Now if I can't fix it, not the end of the world. I've got plenty of other TVs that I can hook those consoles up to. But let's say I can fix it and somebody else does this but doesn't have a ton of space for multiple CRTs and stuff like that. They would need to know how to fix it. So I put the video out there showing you how to mod it. I might as well show you how to fix it if it can be fixed. Now, this TV was just plugged in and it will still have a charge on the tube. It may discharge by the time you get it apart after unplugging it. You do want it unplugged. Do not open your CRTs with them plugged in unless you are a professional and you're doing testing inside that you need it plugged in for. And even then, I would recommend that you unplug it, open it, get everything clear the way you need it, then plug it back in. That's not voltage you want to play around with. So, I think that's all the screws that hold it together. I'm going to pull it off a little bit just to get it loose. Because remember, I still have the S-video and the audio plugs hooked up to the board in here. And I don't think I had a quick connector. I think it's literally just soldered on wire from the connector all the way to the board. I don't think I had the connector kit at the time. Well, I think I found my first issue. It looks like while I was troubleshooting, I didn't hook the audio back up. Man, I really wasn't paying attention. Well, hopefully that's an easy fix. But before we go any further, let's discharge the tube. Remember, we're doing this with one hand because we want to reduce the chances of it arcing across our chest if it does arc, if we do get zapped. And we might hear a pop on this. Let's see. Yeah, you heard a little bit, little pop. So that tells me that it's discharged. So one more time, just for the giggles. And all we're doing is touching the metal probe that's in there. We're not trying to unclip it. We're literally just touching it. And we've got it connected to ground over here, and that gives us a path for the charge to go away. So now, it's relatively safe to work on. There is still some capacitors that are going to be charged, but for the most part, you should be safe. So it seems I gave myself a little bit of space to work in there, but I'm still going to desolder the mod from the board so I can get the back all the way off, get the connector out, troubleshoot it, and then we'll put a connector in midway and sort it out there. It looks like I'm soldered in my signal wire here, and then the ground for that wire goes here, and then I've got another one soldered right here, and the ground is right under here, under this bundle of cables. So I have to desolder it here, here, and here, and this one likely I just need to take that screw out. We'll start with the screw, see if I can get this without blocking it. Oh, I just probably blocked the entire camera. Or at least put it all in shadow. So got that one loose. I'm using a cordless handheld kind of soldering pen. I mean, it's not strictly required, it's just making it a little bit easier for me to get in there and hit the spots I need to hit. Alright, let's pull this away. Gotta get our power cable through. This, and we've got to get our S-video port and our audio ports out so we can use them while we're troubleshooting. Maybe what we'll do is we'll just take out one, test it with that, and then we'll not have to worry about putting two of them back in because it's a little bit fiddly. This box of text right here, this is where we had our S-video Luma connected. This is DVD Y, which is Luma, but then it also says TV, auxiliary, and video. So I think the reason we're having issues with the sync on all the other lines is because we're connecting here and we've got a resistor that's going to ground. We might be losing some of our voltage for these other signals into that resistor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire in on this side a diode to prevent any voltage from coming from the other signals into our resistor to ground. Right back here, we've got these two jumpers. This one says audio R, this one says audio L. Now, I don't know why I didn't see them the first time, but those seem like a pretty good place to tap in for audio. I'm debating whether I want a diode on those as well, but I don't think I need one because we're not shorting our audio with a resistor to decrease the voltage. The audio just goes directly into the audio lines. Now that we know what our next step is, we're going to salvage the S-video connector. I'm not going to reuse these wires because it's kind of difficult to work with the ground that's wrapped around. It's a coax cable. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect the two grounds. I'm going to have the resistor in on this side. So it's going to make it a little difficult to use this wiring. I'm going to use this that I used in my RGB mod on the Sony. Should make it a little bit easier to work with. These are single wires, and we'll have one ground for the audio and one ground for the video. I switched to my solder station just because these are really small pins. I don't want to put too much heat into them because they'll melt the plastic housing. I think I'm going to set it to, let's say 210 Celsius. That should be enough to melt the solder. While that warms up, let's talk about our diode. So we don't need a diode on the audio as far as I can tell. Here's a, let's see, will it focus that close? Come on. There it is. So this is the diode I'm going to put in on the Y. Oh, nope, didn't like it. Okay, well, it doesn't want to focus on it, but this is the diode we're going to use on the Luma signal. And I'm going to put this down in the CRT where we're tapping into the line. So it's going to be at that end, not at the S-video end. Diodes go one way. That's kind of the whole point, is you're preventing voltage from going in a direction you don't want it to. This side has a little black stripe going around it, and this side is red. This is going to be connected to our signal from the S-video, and this is going to be going to the TV. And it blocks any voltage from coming this way through the diode. We can verify that with a multimeter. We'll set it to ohms. And you can see, put our positive on the red side and our negative on the one with the black ring, and we've got continuity through it. That means voltage is going from the red lead through the diode into the black lead. If we flip it around, nothing. Oh well. The voltage from the meter can't get through the diode to the other lead. In case you have one that's unmarked, you might need to test it. That's what you're looking for. And my solder tip should be warmed up. Put a little bit of fresh solder on here. There's our connector. And let's clean it up a little bit. It's a little smudgy. Just got some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. And I think we can turn up our temp a little bit. Didn't seem to want to melt quite fast enough. We'll go up to 225. I'm going to put a little bit of flux on the pins. now that our pins look nice and clean. So these are just 75 ohm resistors. Now we're going to attach these. They have to go from our signal to ground, but then our signal has to continue on. I think the legs on these might be too short, so I'm just going to grab a couple new ones. These two are our grounds, and the top ones are the signals. Before we get started with our test hookup, let's talk about where we're going to do everything. Here is going to be our yellow wire with the diode. Right here, I'm going to attach the orange wire from the audio RCA connector. And then the green chroma channel for the S-video is over here in this top corner of the shot. With our S-video and our single audio line currently tapped in, let's give this a test. So, it appears that while we did solve two of our problems, we have audio from our S-video, our composite input works correctly, and our RF input works correctly. But we did create a new problem, and that's that the S-video video component does not work at all. While I still had it hooked up, I took a small piece of wire and I bridged over the diode that we put in line with our sync signal, and I got a little bit of a picture. It wasn't color and it wouldn't lock, but it did show up. So now what we're gonna do is, I think it's just too much resistance in that diode for the sync to get through on the Luma. The lowest one I have is a 47 ohm resistor. So what I decided to do, just link two of them in parallel, and that brings my resistance down into a range where it should work for our purposes, but we're going to test it first and see what we get. If that doesn't work, then I may just accept the fact that I won't be able to use the other inputs, but I really want to get it working. So let's try this first. Huh. Well, that's still not working right. Did I wire this PlayStation connector backwards? I think I did. Wait. No. I wired the S-video backwards. I guess I'll be putting that diode back in. Alright, so first we're going to swap the yellow and the green wire. because the yellow I have connected to the Luma input, but on this S-Video connector I accidentally put it on the chroma input. So the way I figured out what I had done is, once again, I just took a little leg from one of these resistors that I had clipped off, and I put it across these two, essentially combining the chroma and the Luma. And as you could see, it kind of straightened the picture out. There was color and it locked on, so it was in sync and with color. The color was just really bad because you do need some filters when you're combining chroma and Luma. You can't just put them together and get composite. It'll work, it just doesn't look great. So let's swap that, and then we'll swap our resistor array back out for the diode, and hopefully everything's good. No video. Ugh. Why? Ugh. I'm so close. It's only scrolling vertically. It's not staticky and super blown out. We're almost there. Well, it's been a few days. I've tried different value resistors, a diode, different locations, and I just cannot seem to get it to balance where the S-Video input will work and the composite and RF will work. They just seem to cancel each other out at the point where I'm able to tap it, and any other points that I try, I can't get the S-Video to work at all. I was about to give up and just say I'm going to put it back together with the cleaned up wiring and call it a day. But that's what I did last time. This time I'm not going to do that. So I know that the issue seems to be that the video signal is feeding in through my grounding resistor on the S-Video input, and it's causing the sync issues. Because whenever I take away the Luma circuit, composite and RF work perfectly fine. So what if I just have a switch where I can take the Luma circuit out? Like a switch. That's what I did on my RGB mod. You have the blanking line go to the switch, and the switch turns the blanking line on and off to turn on and off the RGB. Here, I'm just turning on and off the S-Video. I'm not sure why I didn't think of this earlier, but, well, let's put it in now. Let's get that last resistor I put in out, because neither composite nor S-Video work with that resistor. They just both have issues. So it's in the middle of neither one working. It's too much resistance to let the S-Video work, and not enough for the composite to not have issues. So since we're going to be bypassing it altogether, I'm just going to solder it directly there with no resistor. Now before we get to the switch, we've got to make it so we can disconnect the back cover easier, because right now I would have to do all the switch soldering with everything in the case, and if I have to open the case, there's no room to get this stuff out. I'd have to desolder it. We've got 6 wires, left, right, and ground, chroma, luma, and ground. Got a couple connectors, 6 pins, male and female terminals. Let's put that stuff in. Here we've got our switch, and that's wired to our connector that goes to the TV. And then the other end of the switch comes over to our S-video connector on the Luma circuit. Here's our S-video connector with our terminating resistors on this side of the switch. So when we cut it off, the TV is basically just disconnected from the Luma circuit altogether. Then we've got our audio left, audio right, and then our audio ground is just bridged between these two tabs, and then we've got our audio ground cable right here. So in my hubris, I've decided I'm just going to screw it back together without testing that switch. I tested it outside, obviously making sure that the switch opens and closes, but I didn't make sure that it works. I'm pretty confident that it's going to solve the issue, but my confidence has led me astray before. But you guys get to watch it live. Not live. You guys will get to watch it. And, well, if it works, great. If it doesn't, then you can all laugh with me. And then I'll take it back apart and troubleshoot it some more. As was predestined, because I put it together without testing it, you saw what happened. No color. I tested from my injection point right here to this connector, and I had good continuity. So then I checked from this side to the S-video connector, and it was open. So I couldn't figure out why, because everything was connected. And then I realized that the wire was broken inside the connector. I guess when I crimped it down, the crimp went in the middle of the wire and cut all of the back crimp that holds the insulation. That bent in and cut all the wires. So now I'm going to take the pin out, strip it back again, put another terminal on it, check the continuity before I put it together, and solder it back in. And while I'm in there, I'm going to lengthen up those audio lines, because the audio lines, the ground and the left and right, are incredibly short. Unreasonably so. So I'm going to extend those out a little bit, just so it's easier to plug everything in once it's almost closed, and then we'll try it again. And then if I flick the switch off, video's gone. S-video back. Why didn't I think of that sooner? So the switch for S-video is turned on right now. we go. Fixed. Like new. Like the mod wasn't even there. I don't know if it's the cheap RF adapter I have, but it doesn't look great through RF. Let me know if that's what you guys experience with RF, because it's kind of washed out. I assume that's normal. Who can say? But it works. The image isn't jumping all over the place and scrolling. And with that, we've got this TV working the way I had originally intended, just adding the S-video input. I didn't want to disable the composite and the RF input when I first did it. I always knew I would lose the DVD player, but it doesn't work on this unit anyway, so that's not a big loss. And I think it's important to go back and look at some projects that you've done in the past and learn from them, see the mistakes you made, the things you may have overlooked, or the things you just straight up rushed through, like I did with the not even hooking up the audio terminals originally. I was probably just in a rush and wasn't paying attention and just wanted the TV back together to test it out. I hope you enjoyed this video, and for now, I'll leave you with some gameplay, and I'll see you next time. Oh.